The day has finally come. I am ready to start a new project, and I am ready to share that project with you. This is, by every measure, a dream car of mine, and I know that's what everybody says when they start a new project on YouTube, but hear me out. There are only 664 of these cars brought to North America. There are considerably fewer than that left, and I've got one of the very first cars that was brought over. It is a very special piece. This is a Group B legend. It is a monolith in motorsports history, and I am so stoked to have one of my own and more stoked to share this build with you guys. So let's pull this thing out from under the lift, let's pull the cover off, and let me show you what we're working with. For the last 11 and a half months, this car has been hidden in the back of the shop under a cover, out of sight and out of mind. Since I parked it there, I've only pulled the cover off of this thing one time, and thus I've stacked parts on top of it, beside it, and in front of it. Thankfully, that's helped obscure it, because I have put a lot of effort in to keep you guys from guessing what the car actually is. When I challenged you guys to take your best shot, out of the 1,000 or so comments, only one person made a correct guess. That means this is your final chance to take a stab at it, because I'm finally ready to take the cover off of this thing and get this build underway. Understandably, most of you guys guessed that this had to be a BMW, and I can't blame you for that one. There were also guesses for things like a Lancia Delta, or a Fox body, and even a Lotus Carlton, which I admit would be incredible, but no, that's not what we have here. My favorite guess was a Rover SD1, but still not quite it. If you want to get this one right, you're going to need to speak Italian to pronounce the name and Latin to pronounce the manufacturer, all of which for a car that comes from Germany. Anyone that knows me knows I lust for German engineering. And this is, if you ask me, one of the most important cars to ever come from Germany. This is the Audi Quattro. The Quattro is famed for its all-wheel drive system and its turbocharged inline 5-cylinder engine. For many, it is the quintessential Audi, and for even more, it is the ultimate rally car. It's the machine that birthed and won the first year of Group B rally racing, still considered by many to be the best racing the sport has ever offered. But before we talk about my particular example, let's take a lap through the history books. The Quattro was first unveiled in 1980. It was the first production car to make a front-engine, all-wheel drive layout with a turbocharger. To say that Audi nailed that recipe is a little bit of an understatement. If the Quattro name sounds familiar, that's because Audi has named every single successive all-wheel drive system after this car. But let's not be silly, it's not because this was an incredible road car. I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, it's known for its performance, but where it really shined was in the dirt. With the Quattro, Audi proved exactly what was possible with a four-wheel drive system. The car claimed WRC championship titles in 1983 and 1984, and claimed overall victories at Pikes Peak in 1985, 86, and 1987. The car was considered to be revolutionary, and it changed the way rally has been raced ever since. And if its prowess wasn't enough, the scream of its iconic 5-cylinder engine still stands as one of the best-sounding cars ever made. Eventually, the Quattro evolved into the S1 and S1E2. This is perhaps the most famous version of the car, equipped with wild bodywork and an engine that made nearly 500 horsepower. There's also the homologation version of this car, the road-going Sport Quattro. And as much as I wish I had one of these in the garage, unfortunately they still fetch some serious prices, about $500,000 if you're lucky. Most notably, these cars come with a shortened wheelbase along with wider arches and a 300 horsepower variant of the same 5-cylinder engine. But as said, we don't have one of these, so let's go back to the shop and take a look at the example that I purchased. This car has been completely restored. It's had every speck of rust that these cars are prone to, professionally repaired, and it was taken down to the bare metal before it was repainted in its original Mars red. The interior is in beautiful condition, and although it looks black, it's actually a very, very dark brown. If we take a look inside at the headliner, you'll see that this car is actually a slick top, which, from what I'm told, is incredibly rare. That likely has something to do with the fact that this car was built in 1981. What I'm told is that this car was actually a dealership promotional vehicle brought over before the actual production models for North America. This Quattro is in beautiful shape, meaning we've got a fantastic place to start this build. So there are probably a few questions. Why a Quattro? Why this Quattro? And what are we going to do with it? Well, if I have to explain why an Audi Quattro at this point, that's your loss. I can't help you out. As far as why this one, well, this car does have a catch. This particular car was cheap, and that's because after all of the restoration efforts, the owner of it managed to somehow pop the motor. Even the most basic gearhead can spot all of the coolant this thing is pushing out everywhere it possibly can. Records show that the driveline was completely rebuilt, but the owner took things a little bit too hard out at Willow Springs, and that was the final straw. He was ready to just get rid of this thing. Thankfully for us, that means we're able to snag this Quattro for a fraction of the price that these things normally go for. As said in the intro, this is a car I thought I'd never get my hands on, but it kind of just fell into my lap. If you ask me, an Audi Quattro with a blown engine is the ideal place to start this build. Now the Quattro does run and drive, it just doesn't like doing it. It overheats pretty quickly and it's really down on power. I haven't diagnosed it because I wanted to wait in case you guys wanted to see. We could do that in the next episode, figure out what's actually wrong with it before we go ripping the engine out, but no matter what, that engine's coming out. I'm not keeping it. We are going to have some fun with this car, and leaving it stock is not fun. That's not for me. It's not my MO. I've already got an engine. I have teased it in previous episodes. It's sitting back there under that cover. Take your best guess at what it is. It's gonna be sick. This is gonna be awesome. It's gonna sound amazing. And that's part of what I'm going for here. What I really want out of this Quattro is a street car. Every build always winds up transforming into something that's a bit too crazy for the street. So, hard ground rules are no roll cage, absolutely full, complete interior. This one's in beautiful shape. We don't need to go ripping it out. Maybe some cool bucket seats or something, but let's not go too far with it. No aero. Let's keep this thing simple to drive. Maybe we won't even slam this thing. It doesn't need to be on the ground. The Quattro is pretty cool because it can run through the dirt. It's meant to go off-road. It would be fun to keep this thing fit for blasting down some gravel or dirt roads, fire roads, things like that. But that is to say, the first thing on the list that we're going to do is put it on jack stands, pull all of the suspension off, send everything over to our friends in Germany at H&R, and have some coilovers made for this thing so that we can fine-tune it. But as said, there are big plans for this car. I've already got an engine for it, as well as a number of other parts ordered. Everybody that's supporting on the Patreon page has actually known about this car since I bought it a year ago. And they also know what engine we have sitting under the workbench and what other parts are on order. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve, the link is in the description. But otherwise, I'm going to save the big mods for an upcoming episode because I'm still working out some of the kinks. But I will say I have every expectation that this build will be of the same caliber as the 308. Now this will disappoint some of you guys, but it'll make others breathe easy. I just want to get it out of the way right now. I am not going to cut my car in half. Short wheelbase conversions are cool, and if you like them, power to you. The originals are something truly special, but I think it's something that should just stay original. The conversion cars rarely ever have the right windshield angle, and where the B-pillar and C-pillar meet on the roof, it gets too small on the chopped up cars, the proportions get kind of wonky, and the whole thing just kind of looks deformed if you're asking me. It's not a look that I'm into. I prefer the long wheelbase cars. Yeah, it's not as wild looking, but I mean, look at it. This thing looks incredible nonetheless. So, I'm just saying, I'm not gonna cut the car in half, but we are going to cut it up. This is not gonna be your ordinary Quattro, I promise you that. I hope you guys are excited for this build. I've been so eager to share it with you for almost an entire year now. I bought it at the beginning of August last year, and it's just been a painstaking wait until the timing felt right, but we're here. I think this is gonna be a great surrogate for for episodes and content. So let me address one other thing. I know some of you guys are gonna freak out. You're gonna say, whoa, Ferrari progress, you're getting distracted, you're not gonna be focusing on it. No, the Ferrari is still the priority. But a lot of the details that I'm working on the Ferrari aren't really all that interesting, and I'm struggling to make content that feels worthwhile, content that I'm happy with. So I've decided something that I can space those episodes out to fit more into them, to make that content richer and better, and to make the payoff in those episodes more worthwhile. Well, we need something else to work on. We're still gonna work on the Model A2. We've got some steps to make on the E36, but why not get started on this build now? It's been a full year, it's time to get going. So here we go. I'll catch you guys next week with another episode. I'm not sure whether it's gonna be 308 yet, or if we're gonna dive into the Quattro. It'll be one of the two. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you then. Thanks as always for the support.